Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Depot Dive. We're going to dive into three of the biggest Steelers-related topics of the week. I'm Ross McCorkle. Above me here on the screen, for those of you watching on YouTube, is Mr. Joe Clark, as always. And we're going to talk about, of course, the Steelers' win over the Cincinnati Bengals. Once again, flip-flopping every week. You feel great about the team, you feel terrible about the team. This week, again, a 34-12 victory. At least has me feeling a little bit better, riding the roller coaster, if you will. The second topic we'll talk about is the quarterback situation. Aaron Rodgers exited that game at halftime. Mason Rudolph fielded admirably. What's going to happen this upcoming week against the Bears? And, of course, a Bears preview at the end. Joe, before we dive in, how is everything in Boston? Is it snowing yet? Is the temperatures dropping?
Temps are dropping. It's actually been, the last few days, it's actually been pretty sunny out. It's been nice. I mean, it's in the, high 30s, but no snow yet. It's kind of been kind of ideal late November weather.
It was like that here, but it's back into the mid 70s, which I do not enjoy this time of year. But uh, we'll dive into the Bengals here first, and there's a number of places we can start. But I think just off the top, it's important to note that it was basically the polar opposite of the Steelers and Bengals last meeting a month ago. That game, the Steelers lost in a shootout. This game, the Steelers won in more of a defensive battle. And really, both teams' defenses played well for the most part. Aaron Rodgers opened the game with a touchdown drive. The Bengals and Joe Flacco answered with a touchdown drive of their own, and then it proceeded to be a defensive battle for most of the rest of the game. The final score of, 34-12, looked a lot worse than it was. It was really a one-possession game until a couple of defensive touchdowns for the Steelers broke things wide open. So, Joe, where do you want to start with all that said?
Yeah, I mean, it looked like it was going to be a similar game with both teams with opening drive scores, and it was promising to see the Steelers offense respond after, how bad Week 10 was. They put together, a quick 8-play, 78-yard drive to find the end zone, and then just nothing the rest of the way. It was ugly until I know that the drive at the end of the half they went 86 yards to get the field goal, but it was definitely a little bit concerning to see the offense again just kind of stall out and really kind of struggle to move the football for, really what's that now, the third, fourth game in a row that the offense has really not been able to find a groove after looking like it was going to be a bright spot early in the season. So, I mean, with the gauntlet of the schedule that's coming up here over, really the rest of the season, I'd say for, maybe two more games. It's definitely something that has to get fixed for the Steelers to, solidify their standing at the top of the AFC North.
Yeah, if you just look at the scoring offense, things don't look that bad. But when you put context to it, I mean, the Colts game, they had 6 turnovers and only scored 27 points. The Chargers, that one was bad. They only scored 10. The Bengals, the score says 34, but really the Steelers offense only put up 20 of those points. And so, yeah, we're going on about a month lull dating back to really the last Bengals game was the last time the offense looked good. And of course, they lost that game. So, not a ton of positives to take away there. So, yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, what can you say? I mean, he's still on pace for over 30 touchdowns, which I think is more than some probably had projected at the beginning of the season. So, I think overall you take it as like his total body of work is maybe a little bit better than what most expected, but certainly over the last month, it's trending in the wrong direction. And I think, at least to me, it's kind of just flashbacks of last year, really, with Russell Wilson. He had that great game against the Bengals, and then I think he had an okay game against the Browns the week after that, and then it really just took a nosedive from that point forward. And it's a little earlier in the year than that was last time, but I think a lot of people are kind of sensing a similar trend where the offense is going to just come to a screeching halt by the end of the season unless they're able to turn this around. And right now, it's kind of hard to see how they're going to turn it around because it's not like people have been injured, really. It's, they've had actually extremely good luck on offense. Of course, Aaron Rodgers' new wrist issue notwithstanding there, but Yeah, it's been a healthy group, so it's not like we're waiting for, oh, DK Metcalf's been out for 4 weeks, but the cavalry's coming. There is no cavalry. I think we discussed that last week with, unless you count Scotty Miller and Marquez Valdez-Scantling as the cavalry, there's really nothing that's going to dramatically improve. They've just got to play better. They've got to scheme better. And I think I don't really know which side of that equation to blame it on. It's probably a little of both, but execution versus scheme. The one thing that a lot of people want to see more of is Jaylen Warren, and I think once again he kind of showed a promising start to the game. He had that, I can't remember exactly how long that run was. It was a 35-yard run, fairly early on in the game there. What point of the game was that 35-yard run? Was that on that field goal drive at?
Oh, that was on the opening drive touchdown, the opening
Okay.
touchdown drive.
So yeah, early in the game, Jaylen Warren had that 35-yard run. It kind of looked like, wow, this is going to be one of those Jaylen Warren games that we've all been hoping for after he got outsnapped by Kenneth Gainwell the week prior. And, you can blame it on the injury, but that didn't happen until later in the game. They really kind of went away from Warren for the rest of up until he got injured there. So kind of another frustrating thing there. But, Joe, do you think, I mean, it seems like they're going to continue kind of leaning on a 50-50 split with Kenneth Gainwell. I don't really know what to say about that running back committee at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to really like Kenneth Gainwell, and give Kenneth Gainwell credit. He did. I mean, he had a solid game, primarily as a receiver. Um, but they seem to really like him in that third down role. I mean, he had 7 receptions. I think he's 1 reception behind DK Metcalf right now for the team lead in receptions, which is kind of crazy. Um, yeah, so I mean, if that's what they want to do, that's what's going to keep happening. I think, as we talked about last week, I think Warren should play more. I think Warren should play more on third down due to his ability to make people miss in open space and break tackles. But the Steelers really like Gainwell. I mean, Mike Tomlin has been effusive in his praise for him all year, and he had the 2 touchdowns and was a key part for all they won. So this is no disrespect to Kenneth Gainwell either. Um, I just think they can get more creative maybe with how they work him in without necessarily needing to um, take reps away from Jaylen Warren, who's been really their only consistent part of their offense over the last few weeks.
Yeah, ESPN's Dan Graziano in his weekly Buzz file insider thing that he does said that, here's the exact quote. The coaching staff has been extremely happy with Kenneth Gainwell. I expect that Gainwell will retain a significant role in the game plan either way. Of course, referring to Jaylen Warren's I guess it was an ankle injury that he had, but expecting him to play this week. We'll get into the injury stuff later, but even if Warren's fully healthy, it sounds like Gainwell's going to retain that role. And yeah, like you said, he deserves it. But if you look at the full body of work across the whole season, both have been efficient. I'm not taking anything away from Gainwell, but Warren definitely has an edge. Warren has logged 288 offensive snaps. Gainwell has logged 268. Warren, of course, played one fewer game because he missed that, what was it, the Ireland game that he missed there. Warren has an edge at 5.1 yards per touch compared to Gainwell's 4.6. So slight, it's 0.5 is noticeable. That's like a 10% increase or whatever there. So that is noticeable, a little over 10% even. Adds up over the course of a big body of work. And I think even on the ground, it's even more slanted towards Warren. So if you kind of counting the Gainwell stuff through the air, I think Warren actually has an edge either way, but the edge is slightly more on a per touch basis for Warren on the ground. And this is a team that we thought was going to be a running team, and we thought Arthur Smith has kind of always been a running coordinator, and he talked about getting away from his preferred scheme last year because he didn't have the personnel to operate it. But every time they, give Warren a chance to be a running back and run the ball, it seems like things go pretty well. But for whatever reason, they keep getting away from that. And I mean, this isn't even talking about the third running back in the room, which is Caleb Johnson. And this is a guy who has, less than 50 snaps on the year. He has, I think, 23 total touches. It's not very many yards. I mean, this is a guy that's essentially just an insurance policy, an afterthought at this point. And I think Arthur Smith said something interesting about him today. And I think someone asked, what would it take to get Caleb Johnson more involved? And Arthur Smith basically said, well, we would need to have like 40 carries per game, which is essentially just saying, Johnson's not going to get more involved this year is kind of what I read between the lines on that. If you're saying that we need to get 40 carries per game, that the most the Steelers have had this year is 28 or 29. They're averaging 22. And so, Johnson essentially is a afterthought on the offense. This is more or less a redshirt year for him.
Yeah, I mean, the face mask penalty he took against the Bengals was so frustrating because he actually, when he got the ball, I thought he had a few nice runs, and when I think there's a run or two against the Chargers I thought was pretty nice. Like, I felt like there was some capacity for him to maybe factor in for, I mean, he had five carries against the Bengals. Um, maybe that sort of, 5 to 7 carry a game role going forward. It's fresh legs at the end of the year. I mean, Warren and Gainwell have obviously played a lot. Defenses are banged up, but then he gets that face mask penalty, and that's not going to help his standing, especially after, the week 2 gaffe that is kind of I think, a big reason why he just hasn't played very much. So it's tough for him. I mean, I do hope that they can maybe carve out a little bit of a role. What he's been doing, just a handful of carries every game. But yeah, like you said, doesn't sound like that's going to be the case.
Which, when you draft a running back in the 3rd round, and I mean, really, if you draft a running back over the first 2 days in this day and age, you're probably expecting that running back to be a fairly significant part of your game plan in the upcoming season, I would think. I mean, so much has been talked about with running backs. Dave's big thing, them being fungible, and I mean, you see guys like Jaylen Warren, who makes a decent impact in his rookie year as an undrafted guy. So if you're drafting one in the 3rd round with what is your second pick of the draft in a running back, like a historic running back class, you expect that guy to be. And what was he, like the 6th running back off the board? I mean, we're talking about the 6th running back off the board in a historic running back class. I mean, I don't need to say much more to say it's been a disappointment, but yeah, it's been a disappointment. It could have been a 13-yard gain on that face mask. Instead, it's a 15-yard loss. The Steelers have talked about, like, every time we get near the red zone, something happens and we end up getting behind the sticks and like a 1st and 20 or a 1st and whatever situation. And, fortunately, I think they actually ended up scoring on that drive. Was that the touchdown drive there in the second half? I think it was.
I believe it was, yeah.
Yes, it was. 15-yard penalty. The next play, fortunately, Rudolph to Gainwell for 28 yards. And so, not a good look. Johnson loses them 15, and Gainwell picks them up 28. It's like, all right, well, why are we even putting Johnson in the game then? But yeah, you did see some nice things on that run. He showed good footwork and quickness to kind of bounce it outside quickly. He was decisive there. He had good bursts to kind of get around the edge. The stiff arm was a good idea. Had he executed it without the face mask, that was basically everything you want to see from a run from him, other than, of course, him gripping and kind of tucking that face mask down. So, yeah, I mean, he had his first pass blocking rep of the season in this game. I think it was he had one other, I guess, pass block opportunity against the Colts, but didn't make contact with anybody. There was nobody to make contact with. It wasn't like he whiffed, but this was the first time he actually made contact, and that was a big talking point leading up to the year. I thought he did okay. He slowed down Joseph Osai, I think it was, but it wasn't like superb. He kind of got swam over immediately after the initial contact. So, you kind of want a bigger pop or maybe some more balance so that you don't immediately lose after the first contact. So, I mean, he did enough to slow him down. So you give him, I guess, I think I gave him like a C on that block. So anyway, that's enough about Caleb Johnson. It's probably, I don't know how much more we're going to talk about him this year unless one of Jaylen Warren or Kenneth Gainwell gets hurt at this point. He's kind of just an insurance policy. So, over on the defensive side of things, I mean, James Pierre is kind of the big talking point this week, and for good reason. I think the last game, Jamar Chase broke, I think it was a Bengals record, and was it a Steelers record for how many targets? It was a lot of targets, 23 targets, I think he had, 16 catches, bunch of yards, I don't have it up in front of me, 160, somewhere in that neighborhood, and a touchdown. This time, Chase and Higgins combined for just 6 receptions, 93 yards, and a touchdown. And I mean, the secondary looks completely different than last time these two teams played, and I don't really know where to pin the credit on that. I think it's kind of all around, but James Pierre is certainly a big part of that.
I mean, yeah, Pierre had a great game. He had the deflection on the play late, or on the play deep to Chase. He had another one too, and obviously the fumble recovery. I mean, Brendan Eccles also had a really good game, and I think, after he struggled against the Chargers, and he was kind of, I think we talked about really the key pinpoint to, Lad McConkey having a big day and letting the Chargers getting in rhythm. I thought he rebounded in a big way and played really well. He forced the fumble that Pierre recovered, and then I mean, really, I think it's one big thing we can point to, I think, is the new safety duo with Kyle Duggar and Jalen Ramsey. I mean, I think the Steelers played cover two against the Bengals more than they had at any point all season. Um, that's clear trust on those two guys to kind of take away the deep part of the field. And then everybody else kind of did their job underneath. So I think the new safety duo has been key to kind of this defense starting to turn things around a little bit. I mean, Ramsey can play anywhere, but he's really excelled at safety. And Duggar, I mean, he had the pick six. I think he had another pass deflection in there too. So he's
Yeah, could
had,
have been another
you know,
pick six.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, he dropped it. That's right. Um, so he's been a really nice piece since coming over to Pittsburgh. He's kind of rejuvenated after earlier this year with New England. He wasn't playing a lot, and last year was kind of a rough year for him. And he's kind of seemed to get his mojo back in the Steelers defense, and has been a really nice addition for this team.
Yeah, it has. And I think last week it was a timely question from one of our listeners. I think his name was Joe, calling in about, is this team better suited for man or zone? And I think it's starting to become quite apparent that the answer to that is zone. And like you said, they're kind of playing like cover two shell back there, and just keeping everything in front of them. And I mean, you saw the downside of the zone is when T. Higgins ended up matched up on, I won't say matched up because it wasn't man coverage, but the nearest defender when T. Higgins scored a touchdown was Jack Sawyer in coverage. So, there are times where zone can get exploited, of course, but I think overall we've seen the defense improve dramatically with some of those schematic changes, which those schematic changes have been enabled by the personnel changes. And so, yeah, I think Ramsey at this point, you pretty much call him a safety. I don't think it's in anyone's best interest for him to go back to corner. Especially with how James Pierre is playing. And so the thing about James Pierre is, and I don't think you'd get many arguments that he should be the starter, but Mike Tomlin seems to want to go back to Darius Slay. What do you think about that, Joe?
I mean, I think if Darius Slay starts over James Pierre, it's kind of malpractice at this point. Um, I mean, maybe he'll start, get a few snaps, then Pierre comes in, but Pierre has really been one of Pittsburgh's best defensive players when he's came in and played this year. And I mean, he wasn't supposed to play a lot of defense this year, but because Darius can't stay healthy throughout the course of a full game, and their depth has taken a toll, then Pierre's got a chance to prove himself. And in a bigger role, he was fantastic. And Darius Slay has not been that at all this year. So starting him over Pierre really is just not a move I agree with. Like, yeah, he's got the name value. He's been a really good player in the past, but he hasn't been a really good player this year. And James Pierre has been a good player this year. Like me, I don't know if Mike Tomlin doesn't want to risk hurting his feelings, but at some point Darius Slay has to start playing good football, and he hasn't done that this year. So I would absolutely start Pierre, and I will be not very happy if Slay starts over him on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. It's easy to, I think, write off special teams players as just special teams players, and sometimes that is the case. Like Miles Killebrew, we're never going to see a defensive emergence from him. I mean, especially he's up there in age now. But if you look back at the career of, say, James Harrison, I mean, from 2002 to 2006, he only started, I think, 7 or 8 games. I mean, this wasn't a guy who played a ton. He was cut. He was on and off the roster. He bounced around to other, teams and stuff, and eventually kind of got his opportunity, and much like Pierre, seized that opportunity. And, I don't want to draw a direct parallel here, but Harrison was 29 when he became the full-time starter, and I think James Pierre is 29 right now. And so obviously we saw James Harrison ended up having a spectacular career, And all that to say, James Pierre could still end up having a spectacular career for the Steelers. And just because he's 29 doesn't mean like, oh well, I guess he could fill in well for this year, but then it's like, what are you really going to get out of him if he's turning 30 next year? I still think that the best is yet to come for Pierre, and hopefully the Steelers lean into that. I'm hoping that they give Slay the start just in name, and they announce him with the starters, but the snap count ends up being more like a 60-40 in favor of Pierre, or even more ideally. But they're not going to, unfortunately, just given Tomlin's history, they're not going to completely phase out Slay, even though perhaps they should. All right, well, we spent a lot of time on that, just kind of the Bengals recap, got into some other topics there, so I wanted to flip over into just specifically talking about the quarterback situation. Aaron Rodgers, his wrist, he has a fracture in his left wrist, is the report. I think Mike Tomlin actually confirmed that, so it's more about, I think Tomlin laid out the criteria for what it's going to take for Rodgers to play. They need him to be able to protect himself, so it's a safety thing first and foremost. They don't want to put him out there if a small, a fracture in his wrist turns into like a destabilizing break, which at that point, he wouldn't be able to play possibly for the rest of the year. And so that's kind of priority one, is make sure that he can protect himself. Priority two is pain tolerance and just making sure that he can kind of get through a game without, basically losing his mind to how much pain he's having to deal with. It seems like that's not really a concern. Mike Tomlin confirmed that Rodgers was trying to return to the Bengals game, but the Steelers would not let him. And then part three is, of course, how effective can he be? And so obviously we can't really speculate on part one of that. Part two seems like not a kind of a non-factor. And so really the only one we can talk about is part three, which is, can he be effective? And I guess, would his replacement be more effective? Joe, Mason Rudolph had a pretty good second half. What do you make of the current quarterback situation, and who do you think is going to start?
Right now I think Mason Rudolph's going to start. Heading into yesterday, I kind of thought Aaron Rodgers was going to start, but he was even though he said he wanted to practice today, he wants to play, but he had also talked about being able to find the right brace. He said still painful to take snaps from under center, and he said that maybe we could go into the pistol to figure tweak things a little bit to make it work out, but there's a lot that has to happen, I think, for Rodgers to, be fully healthy and comfortable enough for him to play. I mean, as of yesterday, he hadn't even found a brace that I think was comfortable enough for him and protective enough. And this is a guy that took like 8 weeks to settle on a helmet to wear, so that could be that could be a little bit of an issue. But yeah, I think it would make sense just to give him another week to recover and the pain to go down a little bit. You don't have to tweak your offense so that you can run your normal offense with Mason Rudolph. And I mean, yeah, it was the Bengals defense, but he did look good in that second half. He, was accurate. He was on time. And he kind of looked better than Rodgers in the first half. At least in terms of moving the ball, and especially that second drive. I mean, the offense hadn't came in I think like over 35 minutes of real life time. And he came in and got things moving and led them down the field and ended up leading a touchdown drive. So, I think Rodgers overall is the better option for this team, but given the fact that, even though it's a left wrist injury, like how much is it really going to impact? But, there's been snap issues at times with Zach Frazier. Like, do you really want to risk something going wrong because they have to tweak a little bit of the offense because he's not fully comfortable under center? So I think at the end of the day, it probably will be Rudolph starting, but we'll see if Rodgers logs, limited practice today, can get back out there tomorrow, and he feels fine, then they're gonna go to him. But I'm right now I'm leaning towards it being Rudolph.
Fair. I think I'm taking the other side of that equation just because what Tomlin said in his Tuesday press conference. He's basically like, I had a conversation with Rodgers. It seems like he really wants to play. I'm inclined to I'm inclined to go along with that more or less, and talking about, this guy is not a guy who needs practice. And so, does he even need to practice? He's going to probably have a limited practice today, just so they could test things out. Even if he moves in the wrong direction on Friday, I wouldn't completely rule him out at that point. especially, I mean, obviously, if they rule him out, then all bets are off. But I don't think they're going to do that. They're going to do whatever it takes to at least get him to questionable, so that the Bears have to question what the heck's going on, at least until 90 minutes before kickoff or whatever it might be. And yeah, so I'm kind of buying into Rodgers playing. I think he is to the Bears what Ben Roethlisberger is to the Browns. I think over the last 17 games, he's 15-2 against the Bears. That includes, I think, 42 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions. I mean, completely bonkers numbers for Aaron Rodgers against the Bears. He's played him a whole lot, and I mean, I think his overall record is very comparable to Roethlisberger's record against the Browns. And so this is a matchup Rodgers doesn't want to miss. He's going to be lobbying. Is Tomlin really going to say no? Again, we can't speculate on the part of is he going to be able to defend himself. So if that's the case, then and he can't, then I guess it is what it is. But if it's a 50-50 decision, I think you're going to have Rodgers in the ear of Tomlin really pushing to go. I don't know if there's a whole lot more to say there other than, I thought Mason Rudolph looked really good. It was his first drive of the 2025 season, and it was a 15-play, 61-yard drive. I think they overcame some penalty yards in there, too. They overcame a 10-yard offensive pass interference penalty. Of course, that was overcome by Darnell Washington going beast mode for... Actually, sorry. That was one of his nice plays, that 17-yarder. That wasn't the 31-yard crazy play that everyone's talking about. But, gosh, we didn't even talk about Darnell Washington in that first segment. But let's go ahead and do that now before we dive into the Bears preview, just because the big news yesterday was he finally revealed his weight, 311 pounds, Joe. And that is at least listed on the website, which we now know we cannot trust listed weights at all because that's like 50 pounds off of his listed weight. That is at least listed weight, the same as Broderick Jones, more than Isaac Seumalo or Zach Frazier, and only slightly less than Mason McCormick or Troy Fautanu. And so, the offensive tackle talk was not too far off, but I think we like him just fine at tight end right now.
Oh yeah, I mean he's been playing great. I think what do you have 4 for 67 against the Bengals? I mean that run was incredible. I mean he just ran like the way he like got low to like to hit to just truck guys and the way he moves his body. I mean he's a freak of nature at 311 pounds and moving like that. And I think at this point he really is the team starting tight end, and I think it should stay that way.
Yeah. Yeah. For all the talk about like, oh, the Steelers never go with these guys that are overperforming. Like, why are they going to start Slay over Pierre or whatever? Like you want to talk about, it's not always about the money. Darnell Washington's the perfect example. He's the third paid guy in that room behind Smith and Freiermuth, and I think he's kind of turning into the number one. So you can play your way into a starting role. It just does take quite a bit because this has been brewing with Washington for a while. But yeah, 311 pounds. Gosh, I wish that sports science was still a thing and they could do some kind of crazy episode about, Darnell Washington hitting you like a 40-yard or a 40-mile-an-hour car crash or something like that. I think might feel like that for some of those defenders. All right, well, we'll dive into the Bears portion of this show, which is the Steelers' upcoming game on Sunday. The Bears, they're leading their division right now, aren't they?
They are.
Which is kind of crazy. I think the Bears are kind of looked at as the weakest NFC division leader at the moment. The Steelers are kind of looked at as the weakest AFC division leader at the moment. And so both teams have some stuff to prove. Both teams actually... there's a lot of similarities between both teams. I think both teams are very turnover reliant. The Bears are leading the league, I believe, in turnover differential, or right up there with the Steelers at least. I think the Steelers are tied for second, something like that in turnover differential. And so, turnovers are going to be a big key to the game. Joe, what else stood out to you about this matchup coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I think the run game by Chicago is something to note. DeAndre Swift has had a really solid year, 634 yards. Kamananga has had a couple of breakout games. One when Swift was out, but he's ran really well. So containing those two, and then also Caleb Williams, obviously he can break the pocket. He's the highest percentage of scramble drill plays in the league this season. But he's only completed 25% of his passes out of those. So I do think it could be a good opportunity if the Steelers can, cover well enough for their pass rush to tee off. I mean, Williams took a ton of sacks last year, but he's been really good this year. Being more avoidant. He's only taken more than 3 sacks in a game twice, and I think only 16 total this season. But I think it could be a big opportunity for the Steelers pass rush if Williams holds onto the ball too long. And then obviously Roma Dunze's had a really nice year, just kind of containing him. And Colson Loveland is there. They still have Cole Kmet, so making sure they take away the tight ends, which has been a problem this year. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm a little concerned about this team's playmakers, but I do think it could be a game where the Steelers are able to kind of get after the quarterback. Because the Bears' offensive line has been okay. It's been definitely a lot better than it was last year. But I think the Steelers have the personnel that can kind of take away what Williams wants to do when it comes to extending these plays.
Yeah, the Steelers have had some trouble taking. I mean, some games they've had trouble with just the main kind of weapons from the other team, like the Jamar Chase game we talked about earlier. But I think in general, over the last however many years, the Steelers have done a nice job taking away other teams' top weapons and kind of forcing them to beat elsewhere. And I think this year we've seen some of that with, I don't know, Andre Yosevas in both Bengals matchups. He had like at least some impact on the game. I think about the Seattle Seahawks game and like AJ Barner, and the nice game that he had against the Steelers. And so, yeah, the Bears' deep stable of weapons does kind of worry me a little bit. I mean, Adunze, DJ Moore, Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, Olamide Zacchaeus. I think that's a guy that Arthur Smith's pretty familiar with from Atlanta there. And DeAndre Swift, Cole Kmet, Kyle Monangai. I mean, there's a lot of names, and they've spread the ball pretty well to all those guys. I think there's, let's see, all of those names that I just listed have at least 10 receptions on the season. Most of them have at least 20. If 4 of them have over 30, and so quite a bit of spreading the ball around. And so there'll be some tests for this cornerback and kind of secondary. Been playing well lately, but Darius Slay, that's kind of the big question mark. We're reintroducing Slay. What's going to happen there? So that is a worry for me. I think Grady Jarrett's another matchup to watch against the interior offensive line of the Steelers. Grady Jarrett, previously of the Falcons, they played against him. Was it the beginning of last season, week 1? Or was it week 1, week 2, whatever it was? Yeah, Grady Jarrett, I thought, had a good game back then, and this is a guy who they're going to have their attention on this week as well. Tremaine Edmonds, that's a guy, I think he might be on their injury report right now, but he's been having a decent season. The Steelers have kind of been thriving with the underneath passing game, the short passing game, and so somebody like Edmonds might be able to wreak some havoc, limit some of that if executed properly. The one thing about Caleb Williams I did want to mention, which you kind of touched on, but just to put a number to it, Caleb Williams has the longest time to throw in the NFL this year at 3.24 seconds, which is like very, very far ahead of anyone else in the league. For comparison, Aaron Rodgers is the quickest time to throw at 2.59, and so, 0.7 seconds slower for Caleb Williams, which, again, that sounds like not much, but that is an eternity in the backfield, 0.7 seconds. And, you said he does the scramble drill a lot. This pass rush is going to have an opportunity to tee off. The only other quarterbacks they've gone against that have held on to the ball that long, Justin Fields, 2.93, Justin Herbert, 2.92. Otherwise, the Steelers have gone against a lot of these kind of quick, get the ball out quickly type of guys like Joe Flacco and I don't know who else they've gone against this year, escaping me. Dylan Gabriel was one of them. But anyway, that's going to be a big factor in this game. I think there's potential, at least, for a 5, 6, 7 sack performance for this Steelers defense, and hopefully creating some turnovers in that.
Yeah, definitely. If the turnover battle will be, maybe really the deciding factor in this game, given that it's really what both teams have excelled at this year.
You have the, let's go over the injury reports real quick. We've kind of mentioned some of them, but if you have them both pulled up, you can walk us through those.
I got the Bears. So the Bears Interesting to note that they activated Kyler Gordon off, or not activated, but they opened up his practice window this week. So his practice window was open this week, and then they had Jalen Johnson's practice window open last week. Both of them were limited. Getting both back would obviously be a huge, huge boost
Yeah.
for Chicago's secondary. Johnson's their best outside corner. Gordon has been playing in the nickel. Um, Outside of that, DeAndre Swift was limited. Tyreek Stevenson was limited. Darnell Wright, Travis Homer, and Drew Dahlman all limited. I don't think there's much concern for those five to get on the field. And then, as you mentioned, Tremaine Edmonds was on the injury report, did not practice due to a groin injury. Jaquan Brisker with a shoulder. Noah Sewell with an elbow. TJ Edwards with a hand and a hamstring. And then Kevin Byard and Grady Jarrett got rest days. The Steelers had Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Warren, Alex Highsmith, Jonnu Smith, TJ Watt, and Cameron Hayward out, but Smith, Watt, and Hayward are all due to rest. Rodgers, we knew wasn't going to practice. Mike Tomlin said as much in his Tuesday press conference. He also said Warren would be limited earlier in the week. Um, so no huge surprise there. Hopefully Highsmith can get back today after not practicing last week or playing. Having him back to kind of help bolster this pass rush would be big. Isaac Seumalo was limited with his pack. Keyshawn Williams is limited. He remains in concussion protocol. And Cole Holcomb was full, as was Darius Slay.
All right, thank you, Joe. Well, the Corey Trice Jr., we didn't mention him because he wasn't on the report, but this is a guy who is now done for the year. Unfortunately, we saw this coming. He had his 21-day window opened up. He had that media availability where he said he's been ready for a while and kind of waiting to get back on the field, numbers game, and finally they opened his practice window. And he had like one or two practices before he popped up with a knee, and that knee ended his season apparently. So the window closed, which means he is done for the year. And gosh, year 3 for him of basically this same story with modified versions of the same story. And I mean, it might just be a wrap with his time with the Steelers at this point. You can't. They already couldn't rely on him, and they took another chance, and now you can't rely on him at all. That would be insanity. So, might be the end of the road for Trice, unfortunately, which does segue us into our listener question here. This one from Brett in San Angelo, Texas.
Hello, Depot Dive. This is Brett from San Angelo. And my question for you today is, if I eliminate quarterback, which obviously is going to be subject more to supply, availability, etc., and would obviously be the top need. If I eliminate quarterback, what would you identify, like I said, we're halfway through the season now, as the top draft need for this team going into next year? Obviously that can change by the end of the year, but kind of halfway temperature. What do you see as top need or top 3, however you want to arrange it? I'll shut up and listen to the answer. Thank you.
All right. If you want to have a question answered on a future episode, that's 412-254-3145. You can call and leave a voicemail like Brett did there, or you can text us. Just tell us your name and where you're from, a brief question, and we'll answer it on a future episode. This one about the top 3 draft needs, and he didn't want us to list quarterback because that one is obvious. And so, Joe, I'll give you the first crack.
I'll go cornerback, wide receiver, and offensive tackle.
Fair. I think I can't really disagree with either of those, but I think wide receiver has to be on there. I think corner, I might be a little higher on James Pierre, but they still need to stock the shelves. I mean, Joey Porter is in contract year next year, and so this would be the year to give him that extension if they plan on keeping him around. I'm not sure which way that's going to go at the moment, but I think they probably will, just because what else are they going to do at cornerback? But yeah, I can't disagree that they need to continue stocking those shelves, and really, if they could find like a dedicated slot, Eccles is somebody maybe they should look into keeping around. So there's I think some ways you can maybe get around drafting a cornerback. So I guess if I had to sub out one of those 3 you listed, I think it would be corner. And I would instead, you said tackle for your third?
Mm-hmm.
I think I would go with another defensive lineman. The Steelers I mean, Cam Hayward's what happens when Cam Hayward's gone, which could be, literally this could be his last year for all we know. So you need to continue stocking that room. I like Y.A. Black, but he hasn't had the year that people expected him to, considering how well he did in the preseason and all that. So I think you still need to stock that shelf. That's what makes the whole defense work, and that is a top priority in my mind. So for me, receiver, defensive tackle, and I think instead of offensive tackle, I will go with guard, because this is year 3 for Broderick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he has one more year. I don't think they're going to make the change at tackle next year unless the season ends in total disaster for Broderick Jones, which is possible. But Isaac Seumalo is gone after this year, and Spencer Anderson, I don't know. I think maybe he's more of a gadget guy and not a long-term kind of guard, in my opinion. But hope that answered your question, Brett, and thank you for sending one in. Again, that number, 412-254-3145. If I spoke too fast, that's also in the show notes. If you are watching on something other than YouTube there. I think that's all we have for the show today. Joe, I am Ross. That is Joe, and we will catch you guys next Thursday.